It's the Extremist movie debate, and tonight we're talking 2017's Okja.
I'm Joe.
I'm Ethan, and one of us is going to love it, one of us is going to hate it.
Let the coin decide their fate.
I love it.
I hate it. Hey guys, don't steal my pet and try to make bacon out of her. There's spoilers ahead.
All right, and this movie currently holds an 85...
How's your pig doing?
I was talking about burger. I guess like cat bacon. Don't make cat
you said
bacon.
pet. I thought you said pig. Sorry,
No,
continue,
I said
Jeff.
Pet, sorry. I'm a mumbler.
Okay, this movie currently holds
Jeff,
an
ready.
This movie currently holds an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, which makes it certified fresh.
So fresh.
Ethan, since...
do I hate it?
You hate it.
Yeah.
This
Okay, Joe, since you hate this movie, this first question comes for you.
Wait, is it an 86?
85.
Ugh.
I'm also 2 for 2 on messing up who loves and hates. Joe, this first question comes to you. This comes from David Sims of The Atlantic.
Okay.
David says, the Korean auteur Bong Joon-ho is drawing more and more comparisons to Spielberg, and it's not hard to see why. Please stop. Okja is like
I'm listening. Those are my listening noises.
Okja is like a more brutal E.T. if E.T. had been at risk of being turned into mass-produced jerky. Like that film.
Yeah, you'd mass produce that thing into fucking gross Tootsie Rolls. Not jerky. Who would want to eat E.T.? That's gross. You just look like a giant pile of turds that got left in the sun too long. Not me.
May we continue?
I'm waiting. I'm just trying to fill the dead air. That's what I learned on the other podcast. No dead air. You look like an amateur if you do that. Yes, and.
I hate you so much.
Are you gonna go? Or do I have to do another 5 on E.T. looking like a piece of shit?
You're impossible to deal with. Like that film, Bong's is is about the loss of innocence, but more importantly, it's about the value of innocence. So please,
Who wrote this? David Sims?
so please speak on how you feel about the role of innocence and how impactful it is in this film. You have 1 minute.
The role of innocence isn't like the point of this movie. It's just like a sideshow of this movie, basically. Essentially, all this movie is just a big piece of propaganda because some guy loves the earth and doesn't want animals to get eaten. Boo fucking who? I like hamburgers. Not gonna stop me from eating hamburgers watching this movie, and that's all it's doing. Paul Dano, what's he trying to do? He's just trying to get us to stop eating meat. They essentially just adapted Jonathan Safran Foer's book, Eating Animals, into this shitty sci-fi movie about eating giant pigs. And guess what? I bet that meat was delicious. No, I'm not dumb. Don't talk down to me. Don't condescend to me. I don't need propaganda. Just give me an entertaining movie, please. Thank you.
Okay, before we go into Ethan, did you reprise your role as John Connor for this episode? Because that's kind of what you're doing right now.
Oh,
just
my character.
Yeah, when you just kept calling Ethan bitch one episode.
No, but I can.
All right, Ethan, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I think that's fine. It sounds like this movie hit a note for you where you were all of a sudden offended that it was trying to tell you maybe you shouldn't eat this CGI super pig, and you said, whoa, movie, wait a second. I think it's important to understand that there's a lot more going on in this movie than just them trying to tell you not to eat a CGI super pig. So relax your balls and pay attention to the kids in this movie that are actually a wonderful display of innocence and innocence overcoming a corporation across...
Okay, thank you, Ethan.
One kid.
Joe, stop interrupting.
Paul Dano's a kid. He's forever a baby.
It's true. 15 seconds to respond, Joe, and go.
There's one kid, and secondly, if they didn't want to make this movie about not eating meat, not these super CGI pigs, eating meat, they wouldn't have shown us a slaughterhouse. A slaughterhouse is some fucking just devious, liberal way of trying to get you to not eat meat, just to look at the
Thanks,
carnage.
Joe. Ethan, you have a final 15 to respond.
I mean, that slaughterhouse is in the last couple minutes of this movie.
Just
the rest
like
of
Fast Food
it
Nation.
is just, Jake Gyllenhaal doing an excellent Joker impression, just frolicking around, either climbing up a hill or being drunk inside of a big room. Looks like something out of Saw, actually, but it's not slaughtering at all.
So
He's
sorry,
got a
Ethan.
computer in there.
Hey, all right,
Saying there are parts of this movie you missed.
both of you.
Nothing to do with that question.
Joe, both
Jeff,
of you.
Hold on.
Tone it down
What's
a
the next
notch.
question?
it goes to
Stay
Ethan.
on track, Jeff.
I'm trying to go to Ethan. If you would give me a...
Well, go to Ethan. Stop talking to me.
Just give me a GD second. Ethan, this next question is for you. This comes from Armand White of the National Review.
Fuck.
So I pulled 3 different quotes. Armand says, it's baffling how often moviegoers who consider themselves politically savvy fall for assaults on their principles when the offense is disguised as entertainment.
He fucking gets it.
Okja isn't really a family movie unless you've raised red diaper babies, aka communists. And Bong wants us to get worked up,
really get that
both snugly and agitated, about a genetically modified organism. He capitalized that whole thing. But Okja's plot itself is modified for people who don't know they're watching propaganda, so long as it pushes their buttons and makes them feel virtuous. So... Ethan, let me ask you, when adding a potentially social issue such as animal rights into a film, is it possible to include that issue without alienating your audience? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, Free Willy did it 25 years ago. All right, it's important to understand that there are other movies.
Stop interrupting, Joe.
There are other movies about animals in captivity needing to get freed. It's been done for decades. So yeah, this movie is fine. It's already proven successful. So what you have is a movie that's a visual treat. It's a cinematic treat. It's a delight to watch a kid take on this corporation, and you can take that politically if you want, but it's still fun to watch the little guy take down the big guy. And that is also a tried and true storyline throughout the generations. So I'm sorry if you like something that is, recycled and given a nice little just fuck you. Rebranded into something new and original that was already an idea that we've already come across many, many times before. So giving it a little bit of a different take on it, and that offends you, then all the other things offended you, and then I guess ultimately, why do you watch movies? Because they kind of all end up this way.
All right, thank you, Joe. You have 30 seconds to respond.
All those other movies about animals in captivity, they weren't just being made for food. They're completely different movies. The only movie this has a kinship with is Fast Food Nation because of the slaughterhouse scene. And it seems like you're being willfully ignorant and obtuse to ignore the fact that this is propaganda. This movie is a political movie because of animal rights. This movie is telling you not to eat meat. And you keep going back to the kid and the innocents going after the corporation, but it's all fed into manipulating your emotions so you don't eat meat.
All right, thank you, Joe. Ethan, you have 15 seconds to respond.
It's just as scathing to all of the people that are actually pro-animals in this movie. Paul Dano and all of his group, they constantly contradict themselves. They are a complete joke in this movie. You never believe where they're coming from. You never take them seriously whatsoever. There's a reason why he's hiding behind a curtain in a waiter's uniform at one point.
Ethan. Joe, you have a final 15.
Paul Dano is made to be like the Christ image of this. He says, we're not going to do any of this unless we get your permission to do it. He's of noble heart and noble mind, and he's like a goddamn superhero climbing through windows and knowing exactly where she's going to be. So you saying that that's a bad image for somebody is just false.
All right, I'm going to cut you off there, Joe. You guys have 4 minutes to discuss and go.
Paul Dano
5 minutes
was
before
super
that,
cool.
Paul Dano kicks the shit out of Glenn because he says, respect the sanctity of the translation.
Respect the translation, because he's of noble heart. He's beating him because the guy broke his word.
It's a non-violent group. They never want to be violent, but he beats the shit out of him, and then later Glenn chokeholds a guy in the middle of the slaughterhouse.
Who said they're non-violent?
They said they're non-violent multiple times at the beginning of this movie.
They're basically
literally the first time you see them is they say, we're not terrorists, we are not going to hurt you, but please pull over.
So that's not them saying we're a non-violent group. And on top of that, just him beating up Glenn.
They make a point of saying they are non-violent. They have been lasted since the 70s, and they have never hurt anybody. And then immediately hurt people over the stupidest reasons.
Yeah, it makes him a complex character. It makes him human. It shows him as a flawed human being.
Sure, fine. So then it's showing, instead of glorifying him, it's instead showing him as a flawed human being. So what we see is the Animal Liberation Front is all of a sudden a group of flawed human beings that are to be taken at face value and nothing more. You're not going to deify them. You're going to understand that these are people. They have various ways of looking at the world, but we don't necessarily have to agree with them.
They've made them people so you can actually make a connection to them and you can empathize with them. If he was a Christ
if you did that, then you don't have him beating the shit out of Glenn. You don't have him face smacking him against a desk and beating him against a wall.
That's what you do to make him a flawed character. Because if you don't do that, he's not a flawed character. Then he's a stand-in for Christ at that point. So you have to do that to make them a flawed character. So you saying that it's just as mean to that group is just asinine, because this movie is taking aim at corporations that are looking for profits. It's just selling meat. If they were trying to make like the animal rights activist people as bad as the corporation, there wouldn't have been the slaughterhouse scene. We wouldn't have seen all of those super pigs getting gutted and just slaughtered. So I mean,
look, here's the thing that makes this movie good.
I appreciate,
is you have the corporation and you have the Animal Liberation Front. They're both made
misguided.
to be the same
joke.
joke.
The wrong perspective. You have forced a perspective on this movie that is not true.
And so what it ends with is it starts with a child and her pet, and it ends with a child and her pet.
It doesn't start with a child and her pet. It starts with Tilda Swinton saying, "Let's make some super pigs fucking delicious." I think it was the exact words.
That's true, actually. 5 minutes later, it starts with a child and her pet, and it ends with a child and her pet.
And then it ends.
And it makes a joke of every other group on either side.
Well, on top of that, what is the point of this movie even? Because like you're essentially like lashing out at people who eat meat, and at the end you're just like, fuck it, she got her pig, but all these other pigs are getting slaughtered.
But the takeaway here is that
it's fine.
All of a sudden,
bacon.
somebody moderately offends you, and you're wanting to eat bacon, and then you shut off the rest of the movie. Somebody.
I watched the
it's
whole
like you're
thing.
having a normal conversation, and somebody mentions gun rights, and you all of a sudden.
I saw it.
Get my defenses up. We're going to battle. You're not listening to anything else at that point.
That's not true.
So you got to take in the rest of the movie. You got to appreciate things.
And Paul Dano and his group of activists are clearly on her side. Therefore, they are the good guys by proxy. This is
but they also lie to her, screw her over. They get her hurt. They almost
Paul Dano does not
hit
lie to her.
Okja over the head with a baton.
Paul Dano does not lie to her or screw her over. That is Glenn, and that's why Paul Dano. So that was.
I think the point of the movie is to say that
she is justified violence. You are trying.
The only force for good is in the individual.
You're trying to twist.
I'm not. I'm taking the movie exactly as it is.
Like ideology.
And I think it's really cool that we can have a conversation as big as our own ideologies as far as they relate to animal rights. But I think that ultimately this movie is talking about how any power remains in the individual and never in the group. In the group, everything is flawed.
No, what this movie is saying is that the power lies in the monetary value of anything. So the only reason she gets her pig back is because she buys it back. So basically, this movie is just saying you're fucked unless you got money.
Okay,
I mean that's true.
All right, cool. So, what'd you guys really think of this movie?
Ooh, I liked it.
I liked it too. It was pretty good. It felt pretty cliche, but I liked it.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually liked Jake Gyllenhaal's character.
Very much.
I had read that he's divisive in this movie, and a lot of people are too annoyed with his character, but I thought it was great.
I would like to have seen him instead of Jared Leto as the Joker. I feel like that character was just him being the Joker, and I was on board with that.
Yeah, I liked his character. Tilda Swinton always just destroys. I actually forgot Paul Dano was in this movie until he showed up, and I was like, that guy looks kind of like Paul Dano, and he took the mask off, and I was like, that guy's Paul Dano. So no, like all the acting is great. I mean, it is a little heavy-handed on the animal rights stuff, but I mean that's the movie, which I'm fine with. Like, you walk in and you it's essentially like meet your expectations. Like as soon as you understand what this movie's going to be, I don't think you can necessarily be. I guess you can not like it, but I don't think you can really be offended by it. It's like walking into Fast Food Nation. Didn't make me stop eating meat, but I wasn't like fuck that movie because it was trying to do that.
Sure.
It's just showing a different perspective, which I really appreciate.
That's the best thing a movie can do, is show a different perspective. And I do think that there is a lot to be said about the power of an individual in this movie. You know, it's about one pig and one little girl, and they ultimately overcome these two groups, and even those groups like the ALF, the Animal Liberation Front, they're trying to free Okja, but then in the end, you know, you see an endless field of other super pigs going off to their slaughter. Like, well, where were they for that? You know, they did their little bit of effort, but ultimately it amounted to nothing. And it just ends up, you know, you do your little bit at a time. You do what you can do. You can save Okja, and then you can go live your life.
Yeah.
I think that there's something to be said about that instead of we're going to save everything all the time because we're awesome.
Every little bit matters.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you get that hopeless line from Tilda Swinton, just being like, "If we make it cheap enough, they'll buy it."
Yeah,
it's like,
oh god, that character at the end, like the last 10 minutes of this movie, she kills it and is brutal and honest, and that's real.
Yeah, and I think that's this movie's actually this movie's not trying to show us a possible future. This movie is essentially holding up a mirror to our current society, or like currently how we run things basically in a capitalistic society. Like that's essentially what this movie is showing us, and it's sad, man. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I liked it.
Okay, well,
and it's on Netflix.
What would you guys rate it?
I'd give it a 7, and a little bit of thunder.
Yeah, 7 and a little bit of thunder.
I didn't watch it. I watched Fat Beach with a PH on Amazon.
How was that?
Coolio was on the cover, so that's why I wanted to watch it, and he was in the movie for 10 seconds.
Pretty coolio, that movie.
Yeah, it was... I mean, I give that movie 8 lightning strikes. A lot of thunder.
All right, check it out, viewers. Fat Beach, PH, Fat Beach.
All right, well, where can we find you guys?
You can find us at emd.pantspending.com. Thank you, Pants Pending, for sponsoring us, partnering with us.
Our new...
Being in our lives.
Our new family.
We
Yay.
love you.
Sorry, old family, I don't like you anymore.
Yeah.
It was us. Jeff doesn't like
You're
us.
out of here, old family. Jeff, you're walking home.
We're on Instagram at Extremist Movie Debate. We're on Twitter at Extremist Movie. We are on Facebook. You're probably already
That
on
one's
if you
weird
found
though.
this
You have to look up artificialwood.pantspendy.com on Facebook,
Yeah.
and you have to go through 3 different links.
like
and
a
you'll find
subsection.
us. We're in a subsection
We're on
in there.
YouTube. Hey, if you subscribe to this video, I found out that if we get like 1,000 subscriptions, or maybe it's 100. It's
100.
It's
100, we can get our own goddamn URL. That'd be cool.
Well,
So,
it's sort of.
tell your friends.
YouTube.com/extremist debate. So we need 76 more of you to just subscribe to our YouTube
Better
channel.
than putting up a tiny URL every week.
Yeah. All right. Big thank you to Justin Hines of Summer in Siberia. Summer in Siberia.
.bandcamp.com is where you can find him, and he
Yeah.
does our intro outro music.
Check out their new EP, Yimya.
YMYH.
Yimya.
Yimya.
Yeah, it's
It's a good one.
good.
Thanks.
Good night.